The starter. Mike Tyson in. Austin is the champion. Stone Cold. Stone Cold. Stone Cold.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back and
touch them all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
He puts Mankind on the net. No! No! Don't do it! Oh my God, no! Mankind did it! Nick Foley did it! No! Stone Cold did it! Mankind has achieved his dream and the dream of everyone else who's been told you can't do it! No! You can't do it! You can't do it! No matter what, got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
North South Connection, it has been a minute, but we are back here on WWE WAR on the North South Connection. This podcast is simulcast on both audio and video, audio on any podcast application under North South Connection, and video on our YouTube channel. And Marcus, I must say, if you're going to be checking this one out in its new reborn 2.0 greatness, and you are listening on the audio version right now, you should pause, go to YouTube. If you haven't subscribe, and watch this one on YouTube, because we're going to add a whole new dimension to this thing with different graphics. And, you know, I think one of the tougher parts of the show a lot of times is there's a lot of just stats and numbers and addition and subtraction on the fly. And we're going to have like all kinds of graphics up there that show these numbers, show these stats, show this information as we go throughout the episode. So watching on YouTube now will kind of make this an enhanced version of the show that we're talking about. So I'll get into the show for a minute, but I just want to say it's great to see you again, buddy. How you been?
I'm good. You know, I love the enhancers. Mr. Tim behind the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Please don't fire me for publicly shouting you out. But yes.
Oh, he's going to get a big public shout out in about 2 seconds. So
I'm already here, baby.
We kick this off.
So yeah, everything you're about to see is the brainchild of Mr. Tim and also JT, and I'm just kind of along for the ride, chipping in here and there. So happy to be back. Happy to talk some WWE wrestling with you, some pay-per-views, and yeah, excited to get into it with our guess cleaned up, tightened up format.
Yeah, and this is WWE WAR, wrestling above replacement. Concept always being that we're going to stack rank every pay-per-view in WWE history in a seasonal format based on a plus-minus system above or below an average expectation of what a match or a wrestling show should be. When I say seasonal format, what I mean is we're starting with the first pay-per-view following WrestleMania in any given calendar year and ending with WrestleMania the year after. So if we're doing the season of 2000-2001, we'd start with Backlash 2000 and end at WrestleMania 17. So that's how we're looking at this. We already have quite the backlog. I think we've already done like 119 or so pay-per-views in our original run before we had to take our break. And so this is us coming back. We're starting fresh with a new season, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Like we said off the top, the graphics are going to add a lot and kind of change up the shape of this show. And actually, we've done a little bit more. We've done 128 already going into the season we're going to start here tonight. One thing I will say, too, is that if you have any feedback or thoughts on the system or the content, let us know. Share those on YouTube. And one change we have made is that in the past, we used to do 2 pay-per-views per episode. Now we're just going to do 1. So the episodes will be a little bit tighter. We're going to focus solely on 1 show per. And we might move a little slower through the seasons as a result, but I think it was what was for the best to try and get the show back up and running. So like we mentioned, producer Tim is with us full-time here on the show, behind the scenes. All the graphic content you're going to see, he created, and it's going to look amazing. It looks awesome. We're super excited about it. So he'll be running the man in the chair role throughout this episode as we go through. So big shout out to him, because I think without him, we probably wouldn't have come back and done this. It wouldn't have been it was tough getting back up and going again for us, but this was a huge help to have this extra kind of graphic view to get us jump started and excited about getting heated back up on the show, which we both loved. It was just more of a time thing for us to take a break for a bit. So, all right, that's all done. We're going to move forward now and start with the show. The season we decided, Marcus, to do coming back was 1987-88. We wanted to start with some nostalgia, some excitement. It's going to be a quick season. It'll only be 3 episodes because it'll just be 3 pay-per-views plus the awards as part of WrestleMania. But before we dive in, why don't we throw over to producer Tim to tell you all the rules of this show.
Welcome to WWE WAR. I'm producer Tim. JT and Marcus have taken on the noble task of finding the true answer to the age-old question wrestling fans have debated for years. What is the greatest WWE pay-per-view of all time? To find the answer, WAR looks to explore each and every pay-per-view using a plus-minus scale at a baseline average, where things above average gain a point and things below average lose a point. WWE WAR grades on several categories, including match quality, build, commentary, atmosphere, notable moments, card structure, and rewatchability. The magic number to remember for WWE WAR is 2.5. That is the baseline number for an average replacement level match. Any grade higher or lower than 2.5 raises or lowers the average WAR score. For example, if JT and Marcus give a match a 3-star rating, then that match is 0.5 points above replacement. Add all of the totals up and you get your nice round number to give you your match quality grade. There's also a bonus. If there is a match that is 4.25 or higher, or 0.75 or lower, that match receives 2 points or loses 2 points, respectively, for either an all-time great match or an all-time bad match. By the time we're done, we will have composed the most comprehensive list ever for WWE pay-per-views to give you the answer of what is the greatest WWE pay-per-view of all time. Take it away, boys.
That's us. Thank you, producer Tim. Very thorough, comprehensive reading of the rules. And we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Survivor Series 1987 from the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio. November 26th, 21,300 in attendance. Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse the Body Ventura on commentary. It is the first ever Survivor Series composed of just 4 matches on this night, Marcus, in Richfield. And we're going to dive into them all to start the show. So we'll go through the matches. We'll give our grades, as you just heard Tim explain. We'll kind of do our plus minus from there, get our match grade WAR score, and then we'll get into the other categories. So why don't we kick things off with our opener? Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat defeat Dangerous Danny Davis, King Harley Race, Hercules, the Honky Tonk Man, and Outlaw Ron Bass in 23-38, and the sole survivors of that match were Randy Savage, Jake Roberts, and Ricky Steamboat. I went 3 1/4 on this. Well, one thing I really like about the show, Marcus, is like they kind of break up the matches by division. So this is kind of like the IC upper mid card guys. Then we get the women, the tags, and then the main eventers to close the night. So I kind of like the way they went about setting this show up. This is an interesting one. We'll get into it in some of our categories, kind of how they put these teams together, but you kind of get Savage and his rivals and his former rivals like all in the ring at once. And there's a couple of feuds brewed in here. There's a couple that kind of come out of it. You get classic Honky at the end just saying like, you know what, these odds are too much. 3-on-1, forget it. And it's something Jesse harps on as well in commentary. It's like, this guy's got an IC title to defend and money to be made. He can't dick around 3-on-1 in a Survivor Series match that doesn't really have anything to do with his belt. So get out of there. Don't risk getting hurt. And that's what he does. He books it. We do get introduced to some early Survivor Series tropes. We get like the immediate double count out with Duggan and Race to establish. We get like weak pins. I think Beefcake pins Davis or something pretty easily, or Bass, one of them. So we kind of get that right out of the gate too, that, you know, moves that may not finish regular matches are going to finish you off in Survivor Series settings. So we kind of get those things right away. But it looks cool. I think it gets the gimmick off to a hot start. It's like, wow, like these are 10 stars in the ring. It's not something you saw on TV, and probably not even a house show, really. The most you may get is like 3-on-3 in a big 6-man, maybe on a random Superstars or something, but you don't get like big 5-on-5 with stars ever. So this was a big deal to see all these guys, and that's the early selling point. But I like this as an opener. The crowd's all in on it, and you're setting up Savage as your next, top guy.
Yeah, 3.5 for me. This is kind of like my baseline Survivor Series match, and it's kind of fitting that it's the first one because I think they nailed it perfectly. Like, I don't think it overachieves. It also doesn't underachieve. It highlights the different ways that you can get eliminated, as you mentioned, with like, yeah, they eventually become tropes pretty quickly, but like the double count out and Honky taking a hike voluntarily. You get some will they, won't they kind of tension with the babyface team a little bit because you got Savage teaming with his enemies. And then you got a guy like Danny Davis who lasts a little bit longer than you would think because he's just able to survive and kind of worm his way through it. So I think it's a good job just showcasing what a Survivor Series match can be, and they nailed it on the first attempt.
Yeah, and Davis is kind of at the end of his, he's pretty much, his powers are dwindling here. And he hangs around through 88 as like a jobber pretty much, but his days with the Heart Foundation are about over. So he's here in this opener with really like no true allies. He's not even with any Jimmy Hart guys really. I guess he's with Honky, but beyond that, he's not with the Hearts where he'd normally be aligned. But because of the tag setup, they couldn't really stick him with them anyway. So, all right. Pretty good opener there. What do we got for our second match?
We have the women's division being featured as we have the Fabulous Moolah, Velvet McIntyre, Rockin' Robin, and the Jumpin' Bomb Angels taking on Sensational Sherry, Dawn Marie, Donna Christianello, and the Glamour Girls.
Dawn Marie without the Impact Players feels weird.
Right? That's for another podcast. I went 3. A step down from the opener, but still pretty solid. There's a lot of like repetitive moves being done, but the intensity is good. They keep it moving. It doesn't really slow down. There's always kind of like a constant flow of the action. And you get some of these women laying their stuff in. So good enough for a 3 for me.
Yeah, I think 3 is right. I think this match somehow like exceeds expectations, but also fails to live up to the nostalgic memory at the same time. When you look at who's in there and the history of women's wrestling to this point, like 3 is like, may as well be a 6, right? When you really, and you look at most of the women in this match. But like your memory, if you haven't watched it in a while, may tell you, it's one of those matches you always heard about, like, oh, that awesome women's match at Survivor Series, and we'll see it again similar on our next show, right? It's like, oh, it was unbelievable, right? It was the Jump Bomb Angels. And then you watch it, and it's like the Bomb Angels barely are even in the match until the end. They kind of save them. So before that, it's kind of the standard stuff. And then there's a couple of questionable decisions in the match. Anything with Moolah, she sucks anyway. So it's, and then you got Christianello and Dawn Marie. They look like they pulled them out of the retirement home to roll them out there in bathing suits for this match. So it's, they were doing laps. They were doing laps at the local rehab center, and they said, "All right, come on, you already get the bathing suit on, get in the ring." So yeah, it's both to me. Like it exceeds expectations of the time, but it's probably not as great as your mind may remember when you think of like the Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls being in there. And then kudos to the Glamour Girls, because I think actually they do a pretty good job hanging with the Bomb Angels, who were really cut above everybody else at this point in the ring. I think one thing I'll say is you look at this group of talent, and you like, I don't know how they decided Rockin' Robin would be the one that they'd like kind of hitch the wagon to over the next like year after this, because she like has this zero presence, zero charisma, zero. Like you look at Velvet McIntyre, I'm like, okay, well that's something, I guess discussion for another day, but this, I don't know, just it's an odd choice to go Rockin' Robin. She just doesn't bring much to the table in this match. All right, let's go to the tag division next as the British Bulldogs, the Killer Bees, the Rougeau Brothers, Strike Force, and the Young Stallions defeat the Bolsheviks, Demolition, the Dream Team, the Heart Foundation, the Islanders, and that's it, and the Islanders, in a 10-on-10 Survivor Series match. 37-14 this match goes, Marcus. If you like look at it, I think if you take out Rumbles and you stack like the longest matches in pay-per-view history, like this has got to be like top 15, I would think, right? It's almost 40 minutes, which is crazy to think. It's also going to be one of the first times, if ever, they had 10-on-10. So it's a really cool looking, just massive humanity. And I think this one and the one the next year get conflated a bit. I like both of them. I think they both really well worked. I think next year has a little bit more talent. as far as like pure tag team wrestling goes. But this one has a real fun presence as well. And I like it. I thought it held up really well. I ended up going 3 3/4. And it's got a pretty famous final stretch where the Bees and the Stallions are left, and the Bees do the old good for the goose, good for the gander switcheroo at the end and steal the win. And the Stallions becoming the unlikely winners and survivors, which we'll get to when we get to like kind of card structure later. But I wasn't the biggest fan of them winning when you look at the options they had on the other team. Like, Strike Force had just won the tag titles. They probably should have won here. The Bulldogs are kind of getting heated up for a big feud with the Islanders. They could have easily won. Even the Rougeos, like, you're starting to kind of set them up for a heel turn. So I just think they picked. But on the flip side, I think what they were trying to do is set a stage of unpredictability, right? Anyone can survive these matches. Like, it's nothing, anything goes, right? You don't have to be the top guy to survive a Survivor Series. So I get why they did it. I just think there's other options. Or you could have even had the other team win, and you could have went with Demolition. Like, this is their first pay-per-view. They had just debuted a little bit earlier in 87. Maybe give the Hearts a win coming off their loss. So, like, to me, there's like at least, or the Islanders are getting. So to me, there's at least like 5 or 6 other teams I would have chosen to win the match. But that said, I think it does hold up. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a really good pace, and it's so unique looking.
Yeah, I always wondered about the finish. Like, were they trying to heat up the Stallions a little bit just because they're on a lot of those like house shows and they're trying to give them like some value? Never quite got that decision, but like you said, it showcases anybody can win, anybody can survive, and that air of unpredictability. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see my score. It is 3.25 for me, and I definitely do mix it up a little bit with the 10 on 10 from 88, and that one I think I like a lot more. So when I was watching this one, it wasn't quite as good as I remembered it being, and I think it's because I combined those two at times when looking back.
The one
still,
88 just has higher profile teams.
yeah,
And it's with the big angle. So, I mean, we'll get to that season at some point, but obviously the big demolition angle in that one really carries the day.
Well, speaking of big, let's move on to our main event. We've got the team of Hulk Hogan, my guy, Don Morocco, Bam Bam Bigelow, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, and Ken Patera taking on Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, the One Man Gang, the Natural Butch Reed, and Ravishing Rick Rude. I think this is a pretty awesome main event feel showcase. You got like Hogan and his like cronies, his friends. You've got the Giant team, and I think anytime you've got like Rick Rude as like your bump guy or mechanic for your heel team, like your
he was
team.
new, like he had only showed up a couple of months before this, so this is a pretty big spot for him to be stepping right into the main event.
Yeah, he still has a lot of like Crockett on him in 87 and in 88, as I think we'll get to whenever we cover WrestleMania 4 later this season. But I went 3.75. Really good. I really like how Hogan gets eliminated earlier than you would think and kind of like violates that expectation. And Bammer's the one to try to gut it out. And he gets through One Man Gang and he gets through Bundy, but he can't make it through Andre. And Andre kind of fairly picks up the scraps and gets the win. So it leaves Andre as the sole survivor for your main event. It gives him a much needed win in this Hogan feud. And as we know, Hogan must pose. So Hogan comes back out to get his heat back. But you still get the visual of Andre being the sole survivor.
Yeah, I went 4 on this. I love it. I love the whole show. We'll see that play out through the categories. But I really like this main event. I think it's star-studded. I think it's historically underrated and overlooked. Like, I think it has the biggest stars. It's got Hogan and Andre's first time in the ring together since WrestleMania 3. And don't forget, Andre had taken most of the year off with the back surgery. So we hadn't seen really them interact much at all. It was Bobby telling the story a lot on primetime. A lot of highlights of the Phantom 3 count and Mania with Andre at the 2 fingers up or whatever. So like there was a lot of play. So this is a big deal to put these guys in the ring for the first time since then. gives Andre his win back, which is also important to set up their rematch that's going to come up in early 88. So he gets he can say, look, I beat you at Mania for real. There was a bullshit 2 count. And now I beat you at Survivor Series. So, give me my belt back. Give me my title shot. It also does make Bigelow look like a badass. Like they let him go toe to toe with the big dudes at the end and make some hay on it. You get Morocco, kind of a big deal for him being face. It was supposed to be Billy Graham. He gets injured, so Morocco fills in for him. So that was a nice spot for him. Orndorff on his way out, ships in the night with Rude. So like that's a cool touch too. So it's just really well built. It feels like a big deal. His position is a big deal. My only complaint is that, like, I know you're not going to beat Hogan, so they do the count out. Plus, you are going to kind of beat him in a way in a couple months, so they probably don't want to do 2 pins. I think you could have had Andre pin him with like Bigelow, with like Bundy holding his feet, or like something happens, right, where it's cheap. But at the very least, I've never been a fan of Hogan coming back out after. You can do Hogan must pose, but do it after the cameras go off, right? Like end with Hogan in the aisle pointing at Andre, go off with Andre standing tall, and then for the live crowd, Hogan come in and clean house and pose. Whatever, everyone leaves happy. But I do think it's a really cool historical note that Andre gets to be the first, Survivor Series main event sole survivor or whatever. So that they give him that honor coming off of this. So if you look at our total WAR scores of all these matches, Marcus, right? So we take my grade, your grade, we average them, and then we take that average as a plus minus from 2.5 to give us our total. So our total WAR score is 4 for the in-ring component of Survivor Series 87. You can see at the bottom, producer Tim, thank you. So those grades for our total categories are going to populate at the bottom there of the screen as we go to help you keep track of kind of the math and where we stand. That's a pretty good score, especially for 87. Like an average show generally is more like 1.5 to 2. Like this is like a really good in-ring show. Then the great shows are like 5+ usually for in-ring. So I think a 4 in 87 is pretty strong.
Yeah, especially when you've got 4 of the same match types, but they do a great job with the variety of the same match type you're getting. Like you said, you got your upper mid card, your intercontinental title feuds. That's all in, the first match. You got your women, you've got your tag team division, and then you got your main eventers and their associates. So they do a pretty good job giving you variety, even though you're seeing essentially the same match 4 times in a row.
All right, let's get to our categories now. Beyond match grades, we're going to go over to build. So this is really anything that was part of the lead up to the show, both directly and indirectly. We're going to do our pluses. You'll do the minuses, and then we'll net that out to get the WAR score for the category. So here's everything we give a point to for the pluses. As you heard in the rules too, if something was like really good, you can get 2 points. And if it's like an all-time great or all-time bad, it's a 3 minus 3. So the most you can get something is 3. Most of these are going to get 1s, but we do award 2 and 3 depending on the importance or just how good it is. So for the build, we give a point for Hogan and Andre kind of being relit after Andre's surgery, leaning heavily on that 3 count all summer. We also have the Honky Tonk Man Randy Savage feud rolling hot. That started with, on stuff on Saturday's Main Event with Savage getting knocked out with the guitar and then throwing Liz down, and kind of the soft launch of the Mega Powers with the handshake and all that. So this is kind of starting up now, really getting Savage to a face roll. Him and Honky are feuding over the IC belt. Harley Race and Duggan had a little bit of a feud going on. I think, had the Slammies happened yet? Or is it after that? I think it's in December. I think it's after this. But they had already started their feud a little bit coming in here. It is baked into this match. They get the double count out. Then we get the fight of the Slammies with them as well. Strike Force winning the tag team titles from the Hart Foundation. That was a big moment. Very unexpected. The Strike Force came together in the wake of Can-Am Connection. When Zenk left, they put Martel with Tito, and then they quickly win the belts from the Hart Foundation. That was a pretty big surprise after the Harts had them for a bit there after beating the Bulldogs. The debut of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. We didn't get into that in our matches, but we do see a series of vignettes here. It's kind of a mashup of his debut vignettes, him, paying the pool guy to kick everyone out, all the kids out, riding the limo as he's kind of telling these tales of the things he's done. So that was obviously a huge debut for the company, and he debuted right before the show. Andre and Bobby complaining all year, again, about the 3 count. So that's really part of this as well. Slick's crew taking out superstar Billy Graham. That leads to Don Morocco turning face. And then Bigelow's debut happened earlier in the year. It's like in the summer, but it's the first time at pay-per-view we're seeing him. And they do the whole thing where every week different managers are vying and saying, "Oh, we're going to be Bigelow's manager," and then he ends up debuting Oliver Humperdinck as his actual manager. Who we see here, the future Big Daddy Dink and Big Kahuna in WCW. But, so those are all our pluses. What do you got for minuses on the build?
All right. We've got the women's division suddenly getting filled up with competitors and no true build to the match. They just kind of toss them all out there. And then we got no real feuds in the tag team division either, besides the Hart Foundation and Strike Force. Another, just get everybody in the ring and kind of make the match happen. So we are light on our cons for the build up to the event.
Yeah, the women's one's interesting. It's like, have any of these women really been, I guess maybe here and there on random house shows, like depending on the territory. But it's like suddenly we have a 10-woman tag division. Like I don't think so. It's just so out of nowhere.
It's not like they were getting a ton of TV time either. So
no, like Velvet obviously had been around, Moolah had been around, and I think Robin was pretty new. Sherry had been around, but the Bomb Angels, I don't know if the Glamour Girls have been around much. I know they were doing like some house show work here and there. So I think they were probably just working the circuit mainly. But all right, so that is a total WAR score of 6. We had 9 pluses, 3 minuses. So there you go. You can start to see that fill in at the bottom of the screen there. Let's go over to Atmosphere, and these also will be on the screen. If you're just listening, it might be easier to watch because you can see them all on the screen. So Atmosphere is anything going on in the arena, the ambiance, entrances, like stuff like that counts for Atmosphere. So we have the crowd red hot to start the show. Feels exciting. They're molten in Richfield. Coming into the arena. So it already feels very exciting. I loved Honky getting his own entrance. Just great heat. So they kind of bring out the other 4, and then he comes out with his theme song. The crowd's all over him. Savage, his entrance, he's super over in there. All match as well. There's a crowd vibing on Savage as a face. We get Demolition's entrance and theme debuting on pay-per-view, which, of course, is one of the greatest wrestling theme songs of all time. Great energy in the tag match. The crowd is just vibing on the flow, the tag in and out. There's no real heat segments in this tag match until the end because there's so much in and out. It's just a constant flow. Having all the managers loaded at ringside is a fun addition. They're working together. You got Bobby and Jimmy, Slick and Jimmy, Frenchie, or whoever the hell else is out there. All these guys are having to kind of work together seamlessly, but don't usually have a partnership. Fuji and everyone else hanging out at ringside. Big pop when the Hearts get eliminated in that tag match. Like the crowd goes nuts to see them take the fall and get out. Rick Rude's, debuts, chases Face Orndorff. The crowd, kind of feeling that feud as well in the main event. Jive Soul Bro, when Slick brings out his guys, we'll always pop for that one. The Hogan entrance pop is just next level. Like he is super over when he comes out. And then the crowd in the main event just sustain insanity. They are on fire for every tag, every elimination. They're into everything going on. And then the crowd, again, back up for Hogan Must Pose at the end. Pumped to see him. So that's 12 pluses.
All right. We will take a look at our cons. We got a basic looking arena. Again, we don't have like really big entrance sets. Nothing special for the holiday. Nothing's really like Thanksgiving themed. So just a standard looking arena. The crowd checks out for the women after the hot opener. We got Orndorff flipping allegiances again, this time going babyface. And then the crowd gets pissed and dies off when Hogan gets counted out. They lose interest a little bit. So again, though, we are significantly lighter on the con side of things. So, Mr. Tim, what does that give us for our atmosphere?
Looks to me like it's going to be an 8 because we had 12 pluses, 4 minuses.
All right.
Yeah, the Hogan thing, like, gets the con of like giving Bigelow the moment is really cool. But on the negative side, it's like if you would have had Hogan in at the end, I think that this crowd is more sustained and they may lose it. But on the flip side, I guess, like they're down, but you bring them back up with Bigelow. So that was cool too. Like he was able to bring them back into the match. All right, so 8 for atmosphere. Let's head over to notable moments. So we kind of count this on the plus and minus side of like anything that like really adds to the show historically, something big that happened, or on the flip side, something that really kind of is like that moment did not help the show at all. Something that happened. We will be getting to notable moments. Jumped ahead there. We actually have commentary next. So here's our pluses for commentary. Classic Jesse in the pilgrim hat opening the show. Like that's the one touch of Thanksgiving we get on this thing. Good job running on the premise and rules by Gorilla and Jesse. They really get right in. They kind of show them. They run everything down for us so we understand how this works. Nice job by Jesse explaining that Honky should bail out before he gets hurt. We talked about that earlier. He really says, all right, book it. Don't get hurt. Don't blow your title. Jesse gets a great line. He says, Gorilla and Moolah were sweethearts back in 36. It's a really, really funny line. Great job putting over the Jumping Bomb Angels. Is different, as awesome, as unique. You know, they kind of buried them a bit, but instead they really get them over strong. Gorilla and Jesse just all night, iconic. We kind of went to +3. Like they're in their bag the whole night, just telling stories, pushing things along, dialed in as a pair. Just a really, really strong duo overall. And then Jesse loses his shit on Hogan for attacking Andre after the match, rightfully so, just all over him. What do we got for minuses, Marcus?
All right. For our commentary cons, we've got Gorilla and Jesse obsessed a bit too much on the minutia of the advantages and the odds. It helps the gimmick, but also is a lot to kind of process. And, you know, they really jam it down your throat all night. We got no mention of any of the history with all the ins and outs of the opener. It's a lot of stories that they're tying together, and they kind of blow by that. And we get constant talk of the Islanders' hard heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot in these seasons for sure. The constant, hard-headed Island guys. All right, so that brings us a 6 on the commentary total score, and then there's atmosphere popping up as well. So now we'll go over to moments like we talked about, kind of big moments on both sides. So we give a point for Savage's first pay-per-view as a face. It's a big deal. It deserves a point. This is going to kick off one of the biggest storylines of all time. We usually give a point per debut, but a max of 3. So there's a lot of debuts. There's all the women pretty much, except for Moolah and Velvet, I think. You get One Man Gang, Bam Bam Bigelow, Demolition, Boris Zhukov, Ted DiBiase, Virgil, Rick Rude. Like this is a ton of debuts on this show. So we gave the max +3 for debuts. A point for Velvet pinning Sherry clean in that match. Like it felt again like she's the woman maybe to go with when you're trying to look at the next feud if you're going to have one. She gets a pretty decent little pop when she pins Sherry as a champion, and Sherry goes out like decently in the middle of that, but you really want to get the Bomb Angels over, so it's fine. But I think she would have maybe been more protected standing tall against the Bomb Angels and letting them just take her out as a team. But I think Velvet getting the win too, if you want to set her up, is fine. Give a point for the shift in power. The tag division is really seeping in here. You can see that. You can feel it playing with the Hearts losing. The Bulldogs feel almost forgotten in this match. Strikeforce, as on top, and then you get Demolition coming in. So it really feels like we're getting some changeover in the tag division. Andre getting the win over Hogan to survive, and then the Bigelow push was a very notable, very memorable moment on the show that he stands tall with all those big guys.
All right. For our cons, we got Savage, Roberts, and Steamer. They're like they just like had a whole bunch of bad blood, and there's no recent discussion of that. We get Velvet McIntyre gets pinned right after beating the champ. Just kind of let her survive, like you said. We get the first week like heel pushes a rough down, DQ elimination, another trope. We get easy pin trope on display right away with the quick finishes on non-finishing moves. And then we get the Young Stallions. They're suddenly unbeatable after a couple of years of being bums.
Right.
Those opening matches, I feel like over on Place to Be, like you and Scott going over so many Young Stallion matches or Jimmy Powers matches. Yeah,
like why suddenly are they,
fodder.
You can't get pinned? I mean, I guess it's like game of their life kind of stuff. Like, a journeyman pitcher has that one night where his shit's just working. I guess that was kind of the vibe that, like, for whatever reason on this night, the Stallions were just feeling it and couldn't get beat, I guess. But I don't know. It just feels a little bit weird. All right. So if you net that out for moments, it's a +4, which is pretty solid. When you consider there's only 4 matches, not a lot else going on. Card structures next. This is really kind of breaking down what it says, the structure of the card, like where things handled correctly, where they're in the right position, where things too long, too short, could anything have been set up differently to help the show flow better. So we give a point for the good pre-match promos all night. They really help bridge the matches, especially the Hogan and Andre ones. Those are phenomenal. The Team Hogan one is like unbelievable. And on our episode of Chronoso, which airs on the audio version or the audio feed here on No Cell Connection, when we did the show, Rocco Martone broke down these promos, and it's one of my favorite wrestling related like podcast breakdowns of all time. He really dives into like the psychology of these promos. And they just really, they hold up and they stand out. It's just like pure late 80s Coke fueled madness out of both teams. So a point for that. Point for the nice card setup. We talked about it. Each division gets a showcase. A point for the smart work in the opener. Just quick tags. The faces get shine, pops coming out of the gate. They all get to show off a little bit, get the crowd engaged. A point for having only 4 matches, giving time to breathe. 40 minutes, 25 minutes, like everything's getting time to shine. A point for just the awesome idea to have those 10 tag team guys in the match. It looks awesome. Makes a very memorable match and moment. A point for the great use of DiBiase. It's kind of a intermission and introduction to the character on the big stage, and it lets you take a break. I'm guessing that's when the crowd was out getting food and merch during the in-arena intermission, so they're showing that on pay-per-view. A point for it being smart to have Hogan's team eviscerate Reed. Like they sacrifice Butcher Reed, but they make a statement, and the crowd is molten because they come out red hot out of the gate and just destroy him. And they're like, all right, we're fucking on now. Like Hogan's pissed and his team has his back. See ya, Butch. A point to tease and wait on Hogan Andre a little bit. Don't go right into it in that match. And then a point for the faces winning the matches all night. So you're feeling good. Savage, the Bomb Angels, the Stallions and Bees, and then Hogan fucking loses. So it's a really good tilt to say, okay, we're going to face. You think Hogan's going to close the night. We'll feel great leaving, and then he loses. So it was well done.
All right, we will look at our cons for card structure. We get the first eliminations are a double count out. It was a fun fight, but already makes the gimmick feel a little cheap with the 2 eliminations at one time, especially since the match ends the same way with Honky taking a dive. We get Sherry. Should have pinned Moolah to solidify herself as a top dog in the women's division.
When's it pinning her? Is it like one of the Glamour girls?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Judy Martin pins her. And then Sherry goes out like a few minutes later. Like, why not have Sherry pin Moolah to like end that? It's weird.
Yeah. While it does show some fun unpredictability, having the loaded tag match come down to the scrub teams is a rough choice when they could have put over the new champs or Demolition. We got Honky Tonk Man. That interview is not needed. We already got a long gap with DiBiase and Jesse and Gorilla chatting for a bit. Just kind of adds to the length of the show a little bit. We got protecting Hogan with Bundy and One Man Gang count out when it could have been an easy spot for, again, a cheap pin. Andre gets a pin. They hold Hogan's feet, something like that, and actually give somebody some heat. And then Andre deserved one night of shine without Hogan coming in and busting it up. But yeah, that's it for our cons.
Yeah, and I really think Strikeforce winning made the most sense in that tag match. They just beat the Hart Foundation. They're red hot. Just let them survive. Like, it would have been easy. You could put the Stallions and Bees with them if you want, because I think the Hearts eliminate them, and that's not even a feud that really continues. So it's an odd pick. I mean, I guess if you have to have them go out, I would have the Islanders take them out. I think that would have made a little bit more sense. So I think having Neidhart eliminate Strikeforce and then it goes nowhere was a weird choice. But all in, that brings us a net score of 3 for card structure, which is solid. So not dinging too much. And let's get to our last category, which is rewatchability. So we don't really include matches here, right? Because matches kind of have their own grade. This is more moments, things that happen that you would, if you had to put a comp of the show together, what would you want to rewatch from the show or never see again, right? That's on the negative side of rewatchability. So we give a point for the catharsis of Honky getting his ass beaten and running away. Like, that was just a really cool moment, especially if you really hated Honky at the time. A point for those Team Andre pre-match promo. I could watch that over and over. There's a bunch of heel psychos chuckling and laughing and yucking it up. A point for Jimmy Hart's bump off the ropes to the floor. I think it was in the women's match, that one.
Yes.
Was really nasty. He really takes a hard fall in there. A point for the Islanders elimination to end that tag match. I thought that was look really cool with the Bees doing the masks and they come flying in over the top to finish them off and win the match. The angry ref, I know he's got a name, but I can never remember what it is.
Jack Kruger.
Jack Kruger, yes. You know who he is if you've seen him. After that big tag match, he is so disheveled. His shirt's untucked. His hair's a mess. He looked like he'd been through a fucking war. Like, he is like barely hanging on after that match. Like, he definitely went back and had like multiple shots of whiskey and you know, lit up a cigarette or something or went home and injured his poor wife or something, because he definitely looked in rough shape leaving that match. He looked in rough shape than anyone else that wrestled on that night. I was dying when I saw him. The DiBiase video is eminently rewatchable. Just fantastic. Him and his bag and his character. The Team Hogan promo, point for that. Again, another promo I could watch all the time. And then a point for Bigelow battling the Giants before going down to the Blaze of Glory. It's just super fun.
All right. For our cons, we've got over showcasing of aging Fabulous Moolah, clinging onto her spot. We get Canada's strongest man, Dino Bravo, brings Paul Roma right to a tag after his team wrecked him for a couple minutes.
Yeah, what are you doing, you moron? He like walks him right to the friggin' corner.
Not a tag team specialist. We get the Hart Foundation pin and strike force during the commotion, and nobody really realizes it. Should have been a bigger deal for the champs to take
it's even worse, right? Now they don't win. Not only the Harts beat them, they like don't even notice it because everything's going on. It's like completely missed.
Yeah, too many moving parts. And then last one here, we get Hogan is out to kill Andre within 10 seconds of the pin. There's no moment for Andre. It doesn't really get to soak in that he got to be victorious, and it makes Bigelow immediately forgettable too. So that last couple minutes of Bigelow just totally down the drain. All that hard work.
At least give him a minute to stand tall. Like, Hogan's in before like the bell barely rings. He's like in the ring. So yeah, Bigelow vanishes. If you're gonna do that, at least have Hogan and Bigelow run off Andre and pose together. Like, you just did all this for Bigelow and then he's gone. You know what I mean? And Hogan's posing. So it was odd the way they went about it. So final score for rewatchability is a 4. We had no all-time matches, so nothing that we both deemed as 4 1/4 or higher and 3/4 or less. So 0 for all-time matches. That brings us, Marcus, a total war score for this show of 35, which is very strong. And as you can see here on the screen, it slots into 15th all-time for us so far of the 129 that we've done. That's a high ranking. Like that is a good show. You can see where it is, right? It's with WrestleMania 21, slightly above that. And what is that? SummerSlam 14? No. Let's take it, Brock. 16?
15? 16? I think 15.
I don't know video covers. It feels like 15.
15 feels right.
So 15. Yeah, it's 15. Okay. So, I mean, that's a strong finish, man. That is like, in some hot company, as you can see. So I knew it would finish pretty high because it is a great show. Like, I love the show. And even though it's limited on matches, there's a lot happening. The crowd is great. A lot of good build. Well-built card. Like, they just did a lot of stuff right on this night. I think it's a historically underrated show. It's one that I could watch at any time. It's an easy watch. It's breezy. Jesse and Gorilla are always an amazing soundtrack to the night. So to me, it's definitely one that's worthy of being a top 15 show. To me, it's not a surprise. Were you surprised?
A little bit, yeah. Cracking, our top 15 right at 15. It definitely overperformed a little bit. I wasn't sure how the formula of our show was going to benefit the show, but it favored it pretty greatly. So again, not a lot of fat on the show, and that can really benefit a card that's structured like this. So I'm pleased with the finish. I think it's in great company there. Loved WrestleMania 21. I think SummerSlam 2015 was another show that did better than I originally imagined. So that's kind of what 14 and 15 share, and WrestleMania 21 a great show. So excited to start off our new season, if you will, with a bang, and we'll see how the season goes as we keep going.
This is a real compiler. You can see it. Like, it had one big pop in category and atmosphere, but everything else is steady. 4, 6, 6, 4, 3, 4 is just picked up. Because I think where it excelled is it's not a lot of bad. I think that's the key. Like, it's either good to great, and like nothing on it really hurt the show overall. There's a couple things here or there. So, all right, so that'll do it for that. Let's quickly touch on our top 10. Producer Tim will bring those up on the screen for us here. And this is where we stand for the top 10. At number 10, we have SummerSlam 1999 with a WAR score of 38.25.
The SummerSlam 1992 with a WAR of 38.25, holding the tiebreaker.
Yep. And tiebreaker for us is best match aggregate grade on the card. So SummerSlam 92 has I think Brett and Bulldog, obviously, is the best match between those two shows. Number 8, SummerSlam 2001 at 39.
WrestleMania 7 with a 39.5.
WrestleMania. Number 6, Vengeance 2005 at 41.
And number 5, the SummerSlam 1990 with a WAR of 42.
That's a surprising one. That was a surprising one. Number 4, Royal Rumble 2002 with a 44.
Top 3, number 3, SummerSlam 2005 with a 46.5.
Number 2, WrestleMania 22 with a very strong 56.5.
And number 1 with a bullet, ECW One Night Stand with a plus 79.
We'll see if that's a giant outlier or if anything in the future can capture, take that spot away. I don't know. Listen, we have 129 of these shows ranked. So if you have any questions, just ask on YouTube and we can let you know kind of where we stand, the seasons we've done to date. Everything is archived on YouTube and on the Podbean site or any podcast app on Northside Connection. So if you want to go back, if you're new to the show, you can see the seasons we've already covered. And like I said, we've done 129 shows. So if you have a question about a specific show or kind of what's this, what's that, I can let you know if you reach out. Subscribe. It's great to be back. It's WrestleMania season, so we have a lot of WrestleMania content leading up to WrestleMania 41 in Vegas. So we'll have all kind of cool stuff there. Plus, we are doing No So 95 this year, which is a tribute to the year 1995 in wrestling, pop culture, sports, and beyond. So we'll have all kind of cool stuff dropping over the next couple of weeks, centered around the year 1995, weeks and months, really, right through the end of this calendar year. So subscribe for all that. Leave us comments, leave us some love, share us around. We appreciate you. It's great to be back. Continue to live your life above replacement level. Shout out to producer Tim. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks with Royal Rumble 1988.